Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Education in Queen Anne's County work session, Wednesday, November 11th, 2020. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take a moment of silence, please. Today is Veterans Day. I'd like us all to remember all the men and women who have served in the United States Armed Services. Thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I have a approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to amend the agenda to add 5.0 closed session and to remove 2.02?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, I call for the vote on the motion to amend the agenda to add 5.0 closed session and to remove 2.02. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Do I have a motion to accept the amended agenda?
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a second. Questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, I call for the vote on the motion to accept the amended agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Approval of minutes for November 4th, opened and closed. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote on the motion to approve the minutes for November 4th, open and closed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. Thank you all very much. Thank you for being with us this evening. Right now, we are going into 2.01, opening of schools discussion. Ms. Pauls. Can we introduce Ms. Jane?
Yes, we can. So we do have the newest member of our executive team with us today, Mrs. Jane Towers. Mrs. Towers comes to us with much experience in the private sector, public sector. She's worked with colleges, she's worked with other school systems, and she has been with us since Monday. And already she has really done an excellent job in making sure that reports were up to date and done accurately and are ready for signature to be sent off. So we welcome you, Jane, and it's been a pleasure to work with her for the past couple of days.
Thank you so much. So who do we have for the opening of schools discussion?
Okay, so one of the things that we wanted to do in order to prepare for our discussion today was we have been flooded with emails, and we would like to say thank you to everyone for voicing your concerns. We do listen, and so we have several lists of concerns, and most of these concerns were from our association. So we have kind of earmarked each of those concerns for the supervisor that would be in charge of each of those areas. So we're going to start off with Mr. Evans because he's been with us for all day, and we've had an A&S meeting earlier, and I knew he'd like to go home. So the rest of us have to stay anyway. So Mr. Evans is going to address his concerns first and answer any questions that you might have regarding reopening of schools that were submitted by members of our community or our teachers.
Good evening, Ms. Pauls, board members. I know one of the questions concerned the wearing of masks, face masks. Again, we refer to the Maryland Department of Health and the Maryland Department of Education who put out guidance on that, and they do in fact say that all students and staff will wear cloth face coverings while in the school building and on school grounds, and also visitors. But they do go on, and they don't get into the weeds or details about mask breaks. Certainly when students are eating or drinking, they're going to have to, or staff members, they're going to have to take their mask off. And they went on to say the use of cloth face coverings is most important at times when physical distancing measures cannot be effectively implemented, especially when indoors. So I know currently our athletics programs, when they're outdoors, they are social distancing. They're not wearing masks. Other districts, neighboring districts that have some students in that are implementing mask breaks during the day. The county, I believe, is one, and they are doing that outside while they are socially distancing. The other questions, Ms. Pauls, I know had to do with sick leave and things like that. I didn't know if you wanted Ms.
So one was the consent form for parents and staff still has not been shared. And we know, can you just talk a little bit about the status? I know we just had a meeting, and the question was asked, who would be the point of contact? So we just talked about those forms for students and for staff members.
Yes, so we had the principals share the employee acknowledgement form with staff, I want to say Monday. And ultimately, there's been feedback with that, and you had just informed me the association had in fact signed off and approved on that. We are requiring signatures, which is basically, it's a screening form. It's really nothing different than what we've been doing currently when you come into the building as you did and you sign saying that you don't have symptoms, and then you sign in the log sheet. So going forward, by signing that acknowledgement form, we won't be wasting paper, those stacks of paper, and there'll be the one acknowledgement form saying that you answered no to all these questions, and by signing in the contact log that you are symptom-free, and et cetera.
Yeah, so I won't say that the association has signed off on it.
Okay.
I would just say that they are aware of the contents, and it is the same questions that would be asked if we entered any other place.
Correct.
So there was one of parents are aware of the revised discipline policy as it relates to mask and other safety requirements.
So we would need to put something out, but yes, and certainly in the acknowledgement letter that goes to parents, it addresses the mask policy. We would view that if a student refused to wear a mask and did not have an underlying condition, disability, or other reason they couldn't wear a mask, our discipline policy would go into effect, whether it be insubordination at that point.
Will we be discussing that at the policy meeting next week?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. So when will that be brought
So
before the board?
I don't know if we need to go specifically into creating a new policy regarding masks, other than the fact that...
Or add it to a regulation?
Or add it to a regulation, yes.
That would be more simpler.
Okay, and we have the student discipline regulation. So that was not on the agenda, but I can talk with Mr. Tolley about that.
Okay.
All our staff have IDs, badges.
Correct.
All our students have them, except in the lower grades.
Correct. I don't know if they have updated ones this year, though, right?
Well, I guess what I'm getting to is those people will sign those consent forms. But what about vendors or people coming in on a one-time or occasional basis? There'll still be forms like we have now for those people to be checked, I guess.
So, so the revised form, basically, will sit above the contact log sheet, addresses that, and it says that you will wear a mask, and you have to answer, if you answer no to all these questions, you will sign the contact form and you can proceed.
Okay, so there'll be a way for people, outside vendors or somebody from the outside to come in, but they'd have to go through the other process rather than the one-time process,
Correct.
which is addressed. Okay.
Correct.
Other questions for Mr. Evans?
How many times did they sign that long legal size form that we saw last week?
One time.
One time. And that's the parent signs?
Well, so yes, in both cases, whether it's the employee or the parent, it's a one-time signature that acknowledges that, you will self-screen in the morning prior to entering a building, and that you will wear a mask when you come into the building.
The associations didn't agree with it, but are aware of it.
So they are aware of it, yes. And I had forwarded that to their representative on Monday as well.
Why did they not agree with it? I didn't realize they didn't agree with it. Did you?
I don't think that it's been said that they didn't agree with it, but they wanted to make sure that they fully understood, what it encompassed. And so I think Ms. Bass received an email to forward a copy, and it was forwarded, and I did not hear any correspondence, and I don't think Ms. Bass or Mr. Evans did either, but then someone just sent me a text saying that it was circulating, that the questions that were on that form were no different than the questions that we would be asked if we were to enter any other place.
Thank you.
So,
Is that form on our website now?
It was just sent to principals, and I think we just had that discussion today about whether we would be sending it out. Many schools already have. Their staff have already signed off on it.
My only thing would be, once it gets signed off and it's our procedure and policy to do it this way, if it was on our website, then people could review it, see it, and, say if you have a question, you can go to it, because some people are going to sign something and not have a copy of it or something. But
Yes, and that's a good question. So even once we have parents sign that form, we are going to have it on school websites, on the district website, and even have weekly through school messenger reminders to make sure that they are screening.
And we are going to also supply that in Spanish.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and they already are translated into Spanish.
Thank you.
And there's other documents already, you want to mention what we talked about today, that are on the website that talk about the self-screening.
The other, the ones from the Maryland Department of Health and MSDE, yes. Just to, well, one in particular regarding the cloth face coverings and the requirement to do that, and the self-screening. So really what we want to do is put in our updated document that the parents will have on all school websites and the district website.
Does it also include about using the hand sanitizer and washing their hands?
Yes, it does mention hygiene. It says, and you will use good hygiene, as in washing hands, hand sanitizer while in the building. And it also addresses, too, that if a student is test positive for COVID, that they are to notify the school, or if they are in contact with another person who has been positive, or a close contact with somebody who has tested positive, that they will notify us. And that's important, so we can do our immediate contact tracing and identify what other close contacts there may be.
We would do that, or we would just let the
So
health
we would
department?
initially, but we would do it in conjunction with the health department. But we would want to know.
Are we allowed to? That's my question. Or is that just a job strictly for the health department, since there's a HIPAA component here?
So we are. So let's say a parent were to call and tell us that their child was positive. We would then take down information so that we could then determine, and we would use the definition of close contact within 6 feet for a cumulative of 15 minutes over a 24-hour period. So we could ask that parent and or the child who that might have been. And that's not violating HIPAA at that point, but it gives us information that we can then share with the health department.
So, I mean, if these students are in cohorts, do we notify the people in the cohort?
Yes, we do have templates for that, yes, saying that you have, or it may be that there was a positive case in your cohort, however, you are not considered a close contact if the close contacts are being notified individually. We have numerous letters, templates ready at this point.
Okay, thank you.
And the Matt and Maria worked on a template today, or a flow chart today, so that all schools know exactly what the chain of command is and how to communicate, because that was something that was lacking, and I was hearing about things days later, and so we just shared that with all of the A&S teams so that everyone will be following the same protocols, and we'll be able to keep a better handle on what's going on. So.
I see at our entrance here, we have masks available. Will there be I get out of my car and go somewhere and forget it, go back to the car and get it. But will there be masks available at these schools if somebody does not have one?
Yes, and there currently are, and I know Ms. Pullen could, yes.
Okay.
Correct.
We'll get to Ms. Pullen.
I do also want to bring up, when we are just preparing for the new sports starting on Monday, I think it's the spring sports conditioning, and when you sign up to register your child for that sport, and he did it with football and then they're doing it for spring, they have all these things about COVID in there that you have to sign for too. So it's constantly being resent to us to do it in all kinds of venues. So so you have to read it and sign it and have your athlete sign it. So I mean, it's constantly being re-brought up for all of us. So it's a good thing.
Yes, that would be our plan going forward with students, is to continually put that out there.
The nice part about the new forms is that you don't have to sign them every day.
Right.
For example, yesterday, I think I visited probably more than half of the schools, and every time I went in, I had to sign a form. So this will be helpful if you travel and you visit multiple sites, and teachers don't have to worry about completing one every day. So hopefully, we have minimized the work for them.
Just the use of paper.
The use of paper. It's time consuming, so.
All right, anyone else? Yes, Mr. Anderson?
What event would cause us to change the information on the form? Or what series of events would necessitate a change in the form, requiring us to go back and get everybody to sign up on it, sign the new form?
I don't know if there would be one. This is really to simplify the process, and it's an acknowledgement that you are saying by signing the contact form, just as you're saying when you sign the other form right now, that you have self-screened and you are in fact symptom-free and have answered no to all the questions.
Well, the governor could change everything,
This is true.
up or down or all around.
If it became more restrictive, there could be a person at the door with a thermometer. That would be where we're getting more restrictive and actually doing those sorts of screenings.
Let's hope it doesn't have to change, but there ought to be a procedure in place if certain events occur that we can efficiently change the form and communicate. That's all.
Okay.
I think that's in place now. I mean, you and Ms. Fellers have that under control now?
Yes.
With the flow chart and everything?
Yes, and we have,
think we do.
yes, we have a
We hope
process
so.
map that's very good. It works for both students and employees, and it's from the Maryland Department of Health and MSTE. And we reviewed that with principals today, and it's very helpful.
Thank you. Anyone else?
There was a question that came up from a couple of parents I heard was, is there a mask on the sports that are inside the building? I mean, like wrestling, volleyball?
Yes.
Do they have to wear masks
Yes.
the whole time they're doing the sport?
Yes. And I know we don't have a lot of athletics in the building right now, hardly any really, but no, that would be, and that's right off the guidance as well. It's like it's important indoors.
So when they start playing basketball, they're all going to be wearing masks for...
I can't answer that question now, but if you can't socially distance, what the guidance is right now is that you wear a mask, particularly indoors.
Well, we have students indoors now. The technical, commercial people, Title I people. So there should be some experience in working those problems or those issues. Is that right?
Yes, and you are correct. We've had, I think, 200 CTE students in for quite some time now, and I know it's important. They're not eating in the building right now, but if we were to do that, the important thing would be that they are socially distancing while eating, because they'll have to take their mask off.
I guess the even more important thing is there's been no evidence of disease. Or has there?
That's correct. Not with our small group instruction. That is correct.
And they don't all have their masks on, do they?
Yes, staff
they're
members
able.
and students. Yes.
Right. We
Yes.
may have some of our Part D students that do not.
Are your what?
Our Part D are special needs if
Oh,
a student
okay.
is unable to remove or put on themselves or has another disability. So we have some. That's.
Yeah, but I visited a primary school yesterday, and we visited primary pre-K classrooms, and all the students had them on. So,
I think one of the key things important that we say is we have had with all these students, variety of students in a lot of schools, we have had 0 COVID cases.
With the small group instruction, correct.
Correct. What we've had in the schools, which is not insignificant. So.
other questions for Mr. Evans?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
You as well.
All right.
Okay, next we're going to bring Mr. Combs up. He had a few questions.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for being with us.
No problem. So I was asked to go ahead and get some more updates. So as of today, I don't really have any good news about the webcams, the additional webcams. They already have webcams on their laptops.
So the question was when will classroom cameras and
Yep.
ready for use?
They're now
wireless
giving me
mics.
Delivery date of December 9th. They are going to look at requesting comparable alternatives. Basically, is there a different model or a different company that they do have in stock that will be able to maybe come in faster than December 9th? So we might have to switch models if that's the case. I got the rep working on that today to see what options we have. I talked to Department of IT about our internet upgrades. They're giving me an ETA for a statement of work is 11/20.
Wait a minute, the state is going to give us a gig?
No, I have
Additional
to
gig?
talk to the state about getting an additional gig. They're the ones doing the work. It's because that's our provider.
What did you say? I didn't understand what you said. You said,
The state, we're requesting the state in order to increase from 1 gig to 2 gig. So I talked to the state today to ask about the engineering and how long that's going to take. They gave me a deadline of, I should get a statement of work from them about 11/20, November 20th. Once we receive that statement of work, we approve it, they will determine if the procurement's needed, and then they can tell us how quickly the work can be done. And talked to Mr. Wilson from the Department of IT. He also said that they bill annually. So they just send one flat bill I guess at the end of the fiscal year.
So another part of that question was, will training be provided for using the equipment?
Well, the webcams, there's really nothing you have to do. You just plug them in. It self-installs. It's built into every Windows 10 machine that we have. They're already very familiar about how to change in the settings of Google Meet on how to change between different video feeds or audio feeds. If that does become a problem, I'll make a visual guide and send it to everybody. It hasn't been a problem so far, but if it does become a problem, it's easy enough to make a walkthrough. But it's luckily, you plug that thing in, it automatically wants to take over, become your default webcam, default mic, and you're off to the races.
Yes, I think it's important that we assume that it's needed and we have those guidelines for everyone. So.
Yeah, it's just basically the hardest thing is going to be is how to change in Google Meet. So I can do a one-page thing on that. Very easy.
And having enough gigs to handle the entire school system.
Yes, that's definitely a concern. I mean, that's obviously not only sending to teachers, but right now they're delaying us until 11/20.
To even give us a statement of the work.
Yes.
Not even to provide us with the extra gig.
Correct.
Well, good thing about that, we don't have to pay for it yet.
It's true.
but do we know we need the extra gig, or we don't know yet?
If we're going to have this many kids and be using Google Meet inside our schools, then yes, we're definitely going to need it. We're about 50% capacity now on what we currently have.
Right.
But Google Meet's intense, any visual product's intense. So we're definitely going to go over our 1 gig if we have every teacher in this county do Google Meet. So it's certainly going to be needed.
At the same time.
At the same time, yes, correct.
With every student in the classrooms also on their computer at the same time.
If that's how they're doing it, yes. I don't see that how other schools do it, but if they did, yes, it would be even worse.
Should.
You mentioned
Should, that's correct.
webcams were
I
getting.
can't control how Google Meet works and how they do things on their end. I can only do what I can do and get you out to the internet as fast as possible.
The webcams you're getting, you mentioned maybe get a webcam to me is a webcam, but I'm sure it's more technical than that. Can we get another kind or something, or at least get some of them in here and get them start flowing in here? Because
that's what they're looking at to right now, is see if there's an alternative.
Okay, with
besides the model we chose.
Okay, I mean, we chose the model for, I guess, a certain reason, right?
Yes.
But
Plug and play compatibility, we know it's Windows 10, it's a little bit higher end. We wanted the pod stand, and we know it's compatible with our systems, but whatever alternatives we get to, I'm going to have to research to make sure it still works and make sure because if it's more complicated, then I might have to make a guide and have to install it. there's certain things you might lose. We'll have to determine if that's what we need to do. We have to do what we have to do, but that's what they're trying to tell us now is work with Logitech to see, is there something else we can get?
Because they seem to keep moving this out on us. I mean, how confident do you feel the date they've given you now is accurate? And that's
Well, I'm going to put pressure. If they want us to pay them by December, they better come here by December. Otherwise, we might just cancel the whole thing. That's my feeling on it. So.
Are they a company that's big? I mean, are we big enough to ask? I mean, they want our business? Are we? I mean.
Well, we're not certainly not the only ones. That's the problem about buying anything that's a webcam, flash drives, those kind of things. Everybody's buying everything at the same time. That's why it's taking us so long to get the Chromebooks in. And that's the biggest thing. But
We're getting emails from people saying, go on Amazon and you can get all you need.
you can get a $30 cheap one, but I'm not going to guarantee it's going to work.
There you go.
Because you get some of these knockoff ones, they might work, but I might work as well. I mean, I can't guarantee you what the hundreds of things you're going to get from Amazon.
I mean, we can need to get the right ones, but I just need how much pressure how much pressure do we have on to sit there and say, are we a big dog in this fight, or are we just
Our
not?
reseller is the same one we buy computers from, so we've been doing it for 6 years, so we have a good reputation with Dell and our reseller and stuff like that, so I just put pressure on them and just hope it works. So,
and extending our bandwidth, when do you think we'll actually get that? If we get, I know.
Well, they're not telling to me 11/20 for the statement of work. It could be even a week after that, but then to do the actual engineering.
The last meeting you mentioned that they have to do some engineering to find out they can bring it back from Baltimore and all that. So they haven't even. That's going to be the next question. Do you?
That's what they're going to determine by 11/20.
Okay. So do you?
11/20 going to say it can be done or it can't be done.
In your knowledge, do you think we have? I mean,
I think it can be done. I don't see why it can't be done.
I mean, we have colleges, we have a lot of other places on the shore. I would think they can bring it down.
Yeah, there's 10 gigs already in Chestertown.
10 gigs.
Yes, there's
and we're
10
only
gig
asking
feed
for,
in Chestertown.
we only want 2.
And we just want to go from 1 to 2. So.
Okay. Chestertown is 10 because of college?
Well, it's the state highway administration. It's all fiber. That's all government. It's everything. It's a kind of a central point where a lot of things go to for the broadband co-op.
So will they be getting wireless mics as well?
We didn't order wireless mics as a district.
Okay. I know some
schools did.
Yeah.
I helped Settlersville Middle understand how to set those up. Because that's the ones that the principal there wanted to buy. Other schools, they don't want wireless mics in the sense we're thinking about the earpiece because and my wife was also a teacher, didn't like it. Because if you've got a kid talking to you in this year and a kid in the classroom talking to you in this year, it's very distracting. So some don't like the idea of having like a Bluetooth headset. Others use their personal Bluetooth headsets, and other schools have bought it. But any school that's ever bought them, like in big 30 packs, we try to help them out to make sure. Like we work with the principal or the teacher specialist, we'll show them how to set up on one. If it's easy, great. If it's hard, then these are the steps you have to do. Kenai High School has bought some. It's a hit or miss, but schools have taken care of that.
So just to clarify, it looks like December the 9th before the cameras?
Yes.
And then what about laptops for primary students?
I think we already finished that's definitely before Thanksgiving. I think I should have those delivered.
Are they in? They're
in. Now we're just got to get them, we're setting them up. So I think we're still good on track on getting them in before Thanksgiving. But I'm hoping to really get them out by next week, but at worst, that last Tuesday before we're off.
So you're trying to get them in next?
That's going to be the earliest to be next week, end of next week. Latest is probably is that Tuesday before we leave. I want to get them in before we leave on that Wednesday.
And we had a parent call today concerned about a third grader not having a Chromebook, but all third graders have Chromebooks, correct? Yeah. Okay.
We're supposed to.
We sent her your way.
We're 1-to-1 for third grade, and
yes.
There should have been plenty at the school.
Yeah, that's what we said. Okay, thank you. Other questions for Josh?
Anything else? Thank you. Appreciate it, sir.
Okay. Ms. Bass, HR has been working diligently to close the gap from our last meeting. And they've done a great job.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent.
Good evening, thank you.
Oh, it's not
Appreciate
a
it.
problem. It's not a
I know you said you keep Wednesdays open for us, but we appreciate it.
Good evening, everyone. We have been working diligently. We sent out invitations to 171 substitutes. They were already in our corral, and we also opened the rec for anybody that posting that might be interested in coming to work for us. So to date, as of when I came down the steps, 35 of those 171s are active, and 7 are spoken for at schools, and 4 more waiting for some work to come in, because we could not negate the process. You still have to do your fingerprint if you're new. You still have to do the HP 46, might be a little bit too much information for you, but it has to do with any strange activity that you may have participated in someplace else. And we also have to get the fingerprints back from CJS, FBI, state police. So you can be on, but you can't go in school because we're getting ready to go hybrid. So we don't want anybody with any clouded background in with our children.
The 35 of them are ready.
They're ready to go. They're ready to go.
Part of that was those 25 you told us about last.
Correct, I've had more added.
Good job.
You call, you ask people, you tell them what you need. Those that can do, will do. Those that can't, I just appreciate up front you saying you can't do it, then I don't have to keep revisiting you and you not answer my phone call. They know our number pretty well.
And it has been a concern of schools as to how we would assign substitutes. So we just talked about it today, and it's not any of a bright idea of mine, but it's something that, in talking to my colleagues, that they do, and I talked to Ms. Bass about it, and that's assigning substitutes to specific schools, which would help us with exposure and tracing. And the principals or the secretaries would know that they needed to call on those substitutes specifically for that school. So if we have 35, we would just make 2, or maybe 3 for the larger schools, and try to see if that worked. Then that way schools wouldn't have to call around. So that's the plan.
And it really does help principals if they already know who wants to come to their school. And they have a relationship.
Yeah.
They have a relationship. They will build a relationship with that principal and that substitute.
So how many teachers are we down now?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
Those 7 that are at schools are part of that 35, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're in
Not
that
in
corral,
addition
but they're spoken for.
Okay.
They're gone.
Thank you.
Because I got an email that said we had 40 now that were.
40 in what category?
Oh, tell
So I have numbers for you. Medical, ADA, based on the Department of Labor, it is 33 of them. I'm fully transparent. They will have some medical, the doctor has signed off, they cannot work based on some of pre-existing conditions.
And that's to date,
That is to date.
because each day you're getting
Yeah.
few more.
And I got 2 more before I came down, but I added them into my 33.
And the CARES number 5?
CARES is 13. 13.
Now, that's not working at all.
That is your 2/3 of your per diem, not working at all. We don't get any instruction from those 13 as of 4 o'clock.
Virtually or, okay.
Nope. The law says, just to remind you all, I sent it out to you. I'm visual, as the nurse would say. You all got this one night?
Yes.
This is they do nothing, and they earn 2/3 of their per diem. So it's different for everybody.
And that goes through December the 31st.
That goes to December the 30th if it's not extended. No word yet.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, when do we anticipate hearing that?
The 30th is on here. It expires.
But it being extended, that's up to the governor?
That is that's up to the federal government.
Okay.
This is Department of Labor law.
So that's the ADA.
This is your ADA and also your number 5.
So
Okay.
they could extend it for the whole school year.
Not me, but the federal government could.
Okay. But
So
as
the
of right
ADA
now,
expires too? The ADA expires too?
ADA does not expire. ADA is medical. You have carried whatever those conditions are, however long you've had those conditions. So ADA, I can't touch. I cannot touch. That is signed off by a medical professional.
okay.
They're getting paid full salary. right?
Yes, they're getting paid full salary.
And so that's where we're tapping into those that are teaching virtually from home, right? One of the cohorts in the elementary was a cohort C, which were all virtual, and they are being taught by those
The ADA.
people, right? I mean, that was the concept.
For the most part. Yeah.
If they can make it work, they have made it
they can
work.
make it work.
Your principals have worked very hard to make this work.
Not to knock, I think the teachers that are there for medical want to.
They do. They do not want to be out. They are frightened.
So another question that Ms. Bass had was about protective clothing.
Yes, I have protective clothing. I have them outlined and highlighted here. We do not have a dress code policy. It has always been, and it's in the handbook, professional. Now, if people choose to do something different, we did have someone ask about scrubs. They can certainly wear scrubs. They're presentable. A nurse works in scrub, but I cannot reimburse you for anything that you want to buy outside of regular professional wear. I had another question, Mrs. Paulus, I'm not getting in front of you, about COVID leave.
Yes, ma'am.
COVID leave and their sick leave. If they have to isolate or they get COVID, they get a one-time installment of 10 days. That is 10 work days. Now, you know, the weekend is included, so we don't include it because you don't work on the weekend, but one-time installment. If they should get it again, it comes out of their leave that they have acquired since they worked here.
Comes out of sick leave.
Sick.
But the first 10 days are on us.
First 10 days is on the federal government, but through us.
No, wait a
It's
second.
through the CARES Act.
So they'll pay, the CARES Act will pay that.
That's what we understand. I've not been reimbursed yet for anybody that
So
took it.
Have we had anyone go out on COVID yet?
We have,
in theory, we should not lose money on that.
in theory.
When we last met, there were 15 spots that we needed, and we didn't have enough to cover. Now, we have 46 spots, but we have coverage, and I'm just trying to figure the math out.
We do have coverage. The principals have been.
Not for all 46.
Well, the 33 could still be working virtual.
Virtual.
Yeah, correct, absolutely. So they don't worry me as much as the number 5, the CARES Act number 5. We do have to get substitute for those people because
But
they
what
don't
are we
work at all.
What are we missing here? The bottom line, have we filled all those spots that we?
You have not filled every one of those spots, Captain Kelly, because as I come down the steps, and I'm sure as I'm speaking now, somebody's putting in for either an ADA or a number 5.
So, Ms. Bass, if you would share the raw data that we talked about this today.
Certainly
what's
will.
open? So what's open?
You have 4 open at Centerville Middle School.
Just give us a total number.
Oh, give you a total number, 11.
11.
But I have 4 that's pending. They may have been straightened out since I've been here.
And there are some schools who've tried to make it work, who have some open ones, and they are pending, and we've tried to make them work, but some, we have not been able to make them work. We just have not.
So one of the questions that I received, or I think we all did, was on a regular basis, in regular school time, there's always 3 or 4 teachers out at every school anyway. So now, I mean, even those 35 substitutes you have, thank goodness, are ready to go. That's not going to cover all 15 schools if, even in this
If someone
hybrid
gets
model.
sick.
It's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be an issue. And principals are worried about it. They are very worried about it. So,
And we've had special education paras report to us that they are pulled on a normal school year to cover classrooms.
Correct. And that
even though
takes
they're
away.
not supposed to be.
And they should not be. And we have really tried to stay away from that. And principals who have had to put a para or an assistant in a classroom with students that are working virtually, the teacher's teaching virtually, and she's had to put someone in that classroom, we really have stayed away from the special ed. I mean, principals are working so hard to try and cover it. They are even trying to put secretaries or the custodians there, and I said, that's just not going to fly. So they really have tried every avenue that they can. And even with being as crafty as we can and doing some things that we probably didn't want to do, we cannot say that every spot is fully covered. We can't. We just can't, because it's not true. In most instances, we would be down to probably out back, a couple, Centerville Middle School, we'd probably be down to about 4 or 5, but we just don't have them covered.
How many schools are not covered then?
5, but
5
and one pending. The big one is pending.
and 5, and that includes a rise.
Yes, and that is a vacancy. That is not a number 5 cares, and it's not an ADA. He has a vacancy. Someone left.
Mrs. Pauls, if we have somebody in school and we don't have a substitute for that, could that class, even though they're in school on a AA or BB day, could they go virtual that day?
Yeah, but they'll be there by the time we.
I know, but go virtual while they're in school. I mean, it's not ideal because they're in school. We want one-on-one. We'd like the teacher to be there. But if the teacher wasn't, we still could sit there. Since we have a virtual model, we could let them go virtual. They'd be losing a day of in-school instruction, but they're, at least they're learning virtual.
So say I'm the teacher and I call in sick that day, and I don't have someone's, and I can't teach virtually,
Right.
so I don't have a substitute. We don't have virtual substitutes.
Okay.
So that would not be possible. And then if we were able to rob Peter to pay Paul and put somebody in there, who would sit in the classroom with the students, so we wouldn't be able to do that. So I would say.
That's what she's talking about, the secretaries and the custodians sitting as a classroom monitor while they're learning virtually from hopefully someone, because the students are already going to be in the building. It's a conundrum.
And you still have these 33 teachers who will be teaching virtually, where students will be sitting in a classroom watching a screen.
Yeah,
With
that's what I was
hopefully
thinking.
a monitor.
I know each class is different, but if you could send one of those classes to a virtual teacher, I'm just trying to think how to make this.
Caseloads, we'd have to look at caseloads, the number of students. Some of them are already, some schools, they've already had to find another virtual teacher because they were up to like 35. And certainly we couldn't do it in the building because it has to be capped at a certain number depending on the configuration of the classroom, so.
One of the areas that we talked about was in a typical normal year, we get 4 or 5 absences across the system. We're still going to get them. So I wouldn't say, if we're going to get them, and it'll happen suddenly, right now I'm not convinced that we can cover every spot.
Well, with this information, sir, we can't.
The 33 ADAs, though, every single one of them is teaching?
Oh, yeah.
Every single one of them.
Everyone, okay, I did not get that
Yeah.
impression. I thought-
No, they're not like hospitalized. They just can't come in based on underlying conditions, and their doctors have validated and verified.
And some of the number 5s would, if they could. And at this point, we've kind of held off because we want to make sure that it's equitable. But, we were in a pinch. We might have to, but for now, we've said no because we have teachers who are willing to come in. And is that fair to them?
So here's the question. So the number 5s, if it doesn't get extended, those folks have to come back into the system to teach.
Day after New Year's.
Okay. So January, we would have those
Second,
extra.
they should return because the whole play changes. There is no 2/3.
So that extra 13 folks.
Yeah, an extra 13 would join our teaching ranks or come back.
Retire.
So
If they're not coming in now, they might not want to come in January the 1st.
Well, there's that too. I mean, we have to take care of it when it happens.
And they have legitimate reasons. It's just that they don't choose to come in. Some of them are caring for, a parent who is, sickly. So it's, some of them have some of their own issues. So it's hard. From what I'm hearing, and, they would be here if they could, but they just feel as though I think I had a conversation with a friend who was a teacher the other day, and she was pretty candid, and she said to me, teachers are afraid of contracting the virus, and
Rightly so.
yeah, so she said it's not that teachers don't want to work, it's just that they're fearful, so.
I think one of them too that I heard about was in the visit I had, one of the teachers said she was afraid too in the beginning, but then she's realizing it's not a concern as much as she thought once they got used to it.
Right. And I
that
think,
initial step is tough.
absolutely. And when that teacher began, the metrics were much different than they are now. So I think another, real reason that teachers are afraid is because the metrics have changed. And they are fluctuating. And, we're in the 4s. I did jot down the past couple of days. Last week, we went from a 4.2. And the highest that we were was a 5.1, which was on Monday. And then, again, it's what Ms. Morissette said last week. It's the social, it's the outside, and we have no control over that. I mean, I know there's a lot of pictures and whatever floating around now about where students have been and what they've done, and it applies to adults as well as to the students. By human nature, they're social, and so there was an influx on Monday. Tuesday, we went down to a 4.5. Today, back up to a 4.9. So, and I think it's a 9.5 if we're looking at the daily rate in Queen Anne's County. I had a conversation with Dr. Ciatola today. I wanted to make sure that, I was current with the metrics before.
Today, we're at 10.2.
10.2, wow.
Day.
Not percentage,
It was just, I guess, yes.
the daily positivity rate.
Okay.
The percentage is 4.9.
The 35 active, you said, you've got others that are in the hopper. How many are in the hopper that are getting through the fingerprinting?
I want to give you the right number.
Okay. Of the 171.
The 171 is 35 activated. However, we're still waiting for another 7 or 8, he's trying to decide, to get in. So we will be up to 41. So we have always had people for the position, for numbers, raw numbers, but getting people to sign on to come on board, that's the problem. Our numbers have always been higher than the vacancies for ADA.
But the 41, if they're going through the process, then they've agreed to sign on, right?
Well,
This costs them money, as I understand. They pay for this, right?
they pay to be processed, yes.
And there are extenuating circumstances that we can't control with those that have agreed to sign on. They could be sick. I mean, as a former principal, there would be many days, especially during December, and a lot of that would be attributed to Christmas shopping, but, holiday shopping. But we just couldn't get substitutes, and there was no virus. So there's a lot of extenuating circumstances, and we can look at the numbers, but it's just hard to predict what's going to happen on any given day. And I can tell you there's not one principal sitting that is not concerned with that. So, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. It's a no-win situation, but we can look at numbers, and it could work or it could not work. I'm not sure that it's going to make a difference. Even if we had 100 people in, it doesn't always mean that they're going to be willing to come in and substitute on that given day when we need folks, so.
I mean, we're not guaranteeing them anything, so I mean, they have something else to do, and, that's.
Absolutely.
But that's been the thing for years. I mean, it's.
Always.
It's
And
always
it's
been
always
a problem.
gonna be
It's
the case.
complicated
It's-
more
it's
now,
right.
but.
It's not gonna change. It's always been that
something-
way.
I mean, we are where we are now, and we've got to make a reasonable decision and hopefully get things on track.
That's exactly. So,
And I worry too about, Thanksgiving week is notorious for folks to go ahead and, that Monday through Friday being gone.
and that is a concern of the health department as well, too, that the holidays are coming. So if we have any more questions for Ms. Bass, we'll let her move on, and then we have Ms. Pullen, who has some questions as well, too. Any more questions for Ms. Bass?
Thank you for getting us a CFO.
You're quite welcome. A very good one, too.
Keep busy.
So Ms. Pullen has been on the hot seat, and she has worked diligently, and we can't give her enough thanks for everything that she has done. She had some town hall meetings, and I was able to attend one. I was not able to attend the second one, and so she has quite a few questions, and we're just going to try and run through those questions, but we do appreciate everything that she has done with the job that she's been given, because she has not been in this seat before, so.
And we do understand that there are lots of concerns about a return to 50% capacity, and we understand that, and we are working diligently to assure people that we are available and ready for 50% capacity. So first, let me address with you the questions that we received about PPE and whether or not there was ample PPE in all of the buildings. Our PPE at this point, our backstock has been fully distributed. We have at least 100 gloves per teacher in every building. Both gowns and face shields, an additional 50 were sent out to each building on top of what already existed, so what the first shipment they received. So there are of excess of 50 in each building at this point. We have masks, safety goggles, hand sanitizer, spray bottles, masks with vision panels that are specific to use for special educators and their students. We also have wipes and disposable towels that are now in classrooms. At this point, there is one canister and one roll in each of the classroom buildings, or in the building to be distributed to classrooms at this point. If we remain on track to do the 50% capacity on Monday, the additional stock that we have in the warehouse will go out tomorrow or Friday. If in the event that would change for some reason, that stock is going to remain in the warehouse. If you'll recall, these are products that are difficult to get. A lot of them are showing up on back order, and the intent will be that they will remain there until students are back in the building for their use. There were some questions in regard to the sanitizer stations that are at each school. The stations were distributed based on the number of students and the square footage in the building. We have distributed all of them at this point. The high schools are in excess of 10, the middle schools 6, and the elementary schools 4. That's in addition to what was distributed over the summer. These are recent distributions. There was a question brought to us about.
Can I interject? Because
Sure.
Settlersville Middle School is infinitely is larger than
Yes.
Centerville Middle or Stevensville Middle. So wouldn't that have almost the same number of hand sanitizer units as the high schools?
We looked at that. We also looked at number of students, and Settlersville Middle School has a lower population than many of the other buildings.
Thank you.
And the intent was to get them at all of the main entrances, really so that as people are coming in from transportation, there's something that's available to them as soon as they enter the building.
Thank you.
But they all have 4.
Yes, at least four. But we are up to at least 10 in the high schools.
We have more on order.
At this time, we don't have the hand sanitizer stands. What we do have is wall-mounted availability. So where we see that there's additional need, we'll be doing wall-mounted units as opposed to the stands. What we found with the stands is that if they're bumped into, if they're tipped, they're going to shoot out a little bit of hand sanitizer. So at this point, we'd rather go with the wall-mounted or something that's a little bit more stable.
And how many are at each elementary school? I apologize.
At least 4 at each elementary, yes.
So we should be able to mount lots of wall mounts.
Yes.
And
Yes.
sure we ordered all we need.
We have a lot of those available, yes.
Okay.
The next question we received was running hot water in all schools. Centerville Middle School was one that, in particular, that received questions, and we have assured that we have consistent hot water. Due to the age of the building, it takes time for that hot water to get from its initial inception to all of the receptacles. And that is due to the fact that, again, age of the building, there is no recirculation that's happening. So in many of our buildings, we're continuously circulating hot water through so that it's available. In the age of this system, that's not possible. So we are working on some options to safely get hot water stations in the building. Right now, it's available. It's just a matter of time and waiting for that to become warm enough.
So is that going to be handled through CARES money to get that up to speed?
We do have maintenance money, yes, that's available for that.
Okay.
Is that a CDC requirement or what? I'm not saying we aren't going to do it. I'm just asking where that came from. I didn't remember.
It's recommended that you utilize hot water, but hand washing, period, is the preferred method for hygiene over hand sanitizer or anything else.
As long as you use soap.
Yes.
And the biggest deal with hand washing is the vigorous rubbing. You've just doing this and that's not doing anything. You've got to rub. Same with hand sanitizer. You've got to rub it in. If you're just going to do this and just let it air dry, that's not doing anything.
And I spoke with Ms. Chambers. I was there Monday. I was at Centerville Middle School on Monday, and she said that Mr. O'Donnell had come over and he had done some things, and it seemed to be getting a little bit warmer, but it still wasn't hot. But I know that they did look into it, and they are working on it. So,
I mean, is that the original boiler in it from when the school was built?
I believe that there's been some upgrades to it, but for the most part, the plumbing system is original to the building.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was 1989?
That's 1978. It was 40 years.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is there some other?
she has a lot of questions.
I have a lot of questions.
Sorry.
So we discussed gloves, goggles, all the PPE that is in all of the buildings. There is enough for every teaching station in every building. The isolation rooms, there was a question about whether nurses are supplied with all of the items that are needed. At this time, yes, all of the isolation spaces are ready to be used. There are a few additional requests that we've got and that Ms. Fellers and her staff have on order, such as additional curtains for some extra privacy. There are some privacy panels that are transparent. Those type of items that we're still waiting for. There was some questions in regard to our town halls, the amount of time that was allotted for those, and we certainly understand that the more notice that can be given, that's especially helpful. The 404 and the bottles, we do have all of the bottles in the schools. There has been some requests for additionals. There is a new order that's coming in tomorrow. It's a back order that had already been placed, and we'll be getting those out immediately for the additional bottles.
So, there's been questions about that. So all the bottles are now marked.
Yes.
There are safety sheets available in the building with and the contents of this formula, 404.
Yes, that is correct.
And we have been using this, as I understand it, for 8 years.
That's correct.
And it's hospital grade?
It is hospital grade. It is part of our green cleaning program. It is what is recommended and on the EPA list to actually kill the COVID virus. And we work very closely with a large supplier who also works with many other school districts, as well as hospitals, as well as commercial facilities. And this is their recommendation because it's a multi-purpose cleaner as well as a disinfectant.
So Dacon, that's who?
Dacon is our supplier. Correct.
Thank you.
We had some questions about number of times that operations is in the buildings. I wanted to assure everyone that very regularly our staff is in and out of all of the spaces. Settlersville Elementary School was one that was specifically asked about because they have a larger population of students. I've personally been in there 2 times in the last 2 months. In August, I spent a number of days there helping them to set up for their summer school program. So I thoroughly understand the number of students they have. We're in all of our buildings very regularly, as well as Queen Anne's County High School, which has 200 students rotating through there on Wednesdays. So we are watching how the process is going. We are taking note of any changes that need to be made and watching what we can do to make that more effective.
Well, the high school students, both high schools have over 1,000 students, so you're only talking about 200 in a cohort. I mean, that's not, I mean, you can see it, but it's still not 50%.
Right. For our high school level, we're going to see many more students at 50% capacity.
So what's the anticipation there with the hallways and the social distancing? And
the schools are handling it a little bit differently in terms of their transition times. There's much more time that's been built in. Both of the high schools have their own plan for how they will dismiss classes so that it will not be everyone moving throughout the building at the same time. That will also give some time for cleaning and disinfecting in between as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I can tell you, online with Caitlin during school, my special needs, she's at home, but I can hear the announcements when she's in class about when they can rotate and keeping space. And so I hear it, they're doing it at Queen Anne's.
There was a question about follow-up on the cleaning and disinfecting process. And as I mentioned at one of our prior board meetings, we have a 3-part process that is in place. Every week, the lead custodian is going to be doing an inspection of their building and then submitting that inspection to us. Every week, at an unspecified time, the principal or a designee from the building will actually be doing an inspection process. And then every week, someone from the central office staff will be doing an inspection. That's to assure that we are all seeing the same thing, we are all on the same page, we are catching issues as soon as they arise. We had a question about PPE and the notification to all employees as to what was available in the building. This information is readily available at the office of each school. There has been a PPE coordinator that has been designated by the building principal, and that person is keeping all of the PPE safe, as well as an inventory of everything that we are using. We feel that it's really important to go through this appropriate chain of command because there is one person that is then requesting new PPE. There is one person that knows when that has come in. There is one person who's maintaining that inventory. So we have encouraged our staff and the staff in buildings to find out who that PPE coordinator is, as well as to discuss this with the principal if they have any question about what is in the building. One of the emails that we received had many questions in regard to Osha compliance. And I want to tell you that we take OSHA very seriously. We have a very good relationship with our Maryland occupational safety and health inspectors that regularly come to our buildings to make sure that we are keeping the workplace safe. And that's important to us. So because we have these questions, we've reached out and are having the conversations directly with Moshe, and we've asked them to come in and do a consultation for us on cleaning, disinfecting, how we are labeling our bottles, models to do a thorough investigation to make sure that we are on track and doing what we say that we're going to do. It has been our assessment that we are doing that correctly. We want someone to come in behind us and tell us that we're doing that because there are concerns.
Have they scheduled that yet?
No, we are still, it's difficult because they are currently working on COVID protocols as well, and many of them are working from home. So we're in the process of seeing who will be able to come visit us. But I can let you know as soon as that is scheduled, and we're working to do that as soon as possible. There was some question in regard to OSHA compliance as well as disinfecting and killing germs. What I can tell you is that there's a different process in cleaning, there's a different process in sanitizing, there's a different process in disinfecting. They're not all the same thing. And in the instructional video that we provided to staff, we outlined this. So cleaning is essentially just getting rid of the dirt. The sanitizing is removing some of those germs, and then the disinfection process is actually killing the germs by using a chemical. And we've laid this all out in our training video so that everyone understands why we're doing different things at different times. The 404 that we use is a sanitizer. So as that is sprayed, it will sanitize the space by removing the germs. We're taking the germs away. The alcohol wipes that are provided in each of the classrooms as well will, if you utilize a 70% or more alcohol concentration, that has been proven to kill the COVID germs. The wipes that we are utilizing are 75% alcohol. Once again, we are sanitizing the space, sanitizing that surface. At the end of every evening, that is where we're doing the disinfection process, and that is where we're utilizing our electrostatic sprayers. We are misting the entire room, the entire space in every building every evening to make sure that we have killed the germs using that chemical. The alcohol wipes, there was some question about dwell time for both our sanitizing and disinfecting, as well as the alcohol wipes. What I can tell you with the alcohol wipes is that we have gotten the information directly from the manufacturer, and it does not address dwell time. The research that we have done says that alcohol possibly can take anywhere up to 5 minutes to fully disinfect, to fully kill those germs. It could be 30 seconds, it could be 1 minute. The product that we have does not give us a specific time. What we are recommending is that the surface that is being cleaned or sanitized is completely wet with the wipe. The drying time will occur naturally. We are not wiping off the alcohol surface at all. And at that time, we will have at least reached our 1 minute time frame, and hopefully as these class transitions are happening, we will reach that 5 minute time frame as well. And that's where we believe the sanitizing will occur. Again, disinfection will occur at the end of every evening. There was some discussion about hazardous chemicals, training, and the written communication program that is in every building. Per OSHA requirements, we do have all of these documents within our building. What we are doing at this point is making sure, with Moshe's help, that we have updated to include all of the hand sanitizers and the alcohol wipes that currently or previously were not in use, that these are new to COVID and are COVID specific. Our 404 is already included in there because, again, we've been utilizing that in the building for the past 8 years. In terms of training and how we can better train staff, we had attempted to do that in our video that explained the cleaning and sanitation process. We've understood through staff that they don't feel it's sufficient, so we are working with DACON and our manufacturers on a step-by-step process of how you utilize the wipe to clean a surface and then how you utilize the spray to clean a surface so that everyone will feel more comfortable in the event that they're asked to use something like that. As you mentioned, there was some discussion about labeling. There was a bottle that was identified that had not been labeled in one of our buildings. It was a hand sanitizer bottle that we were able to recognize from the picture. And as I explained during our town hall meeting, in June and July, hand sanitizer was very difficult to come by. as it arrived on site, and even sometimes it was shipped directly to buildings in an effort to get it there quickly, the labels had not been affixed at that time. September 10th was the first day that I was in this position, and we sent out labels to all of the buildings. We are actively continuing to make sure that they all are labeled because we understand that that was something that shouldn't have occurred, and we have found one, and we're hoping that everyone will let us know if there is something so that we can identify it, we can get the proper labels on. There was a question in regard to air quality testing and whether we would do that before students arrive. What I can tell you about air quality testing is that we have consulted with Aerosol Monitoring, who is the company that we outsource to for any of our questions about air quality. They have indicated that at this time there is no air quality test to test for COVID. They can only test for COVID on surfaces, not within the air. And what they have said is that that test at this point, even if they were to do it on surfaces, is not accurate because the virus could show up, but it's not active. So they are not recommending that anyone do that particular testing at this time. We are consulting with them on our Centerville Middle School issue that was raised last week, and they will be doing the air quality testing within the next week or two there. What we are doing with our HVAC is everything that ASHRAE has listed as necessary to maintain proper HVAC operation in COVID times. And ASHRAE is the Association of Air Refrigeration and Air Conditioning. And they put out standards very early in this process to let us know how we should be operating all of our equipment. What we are doing right now is we're pulling in as much outside air as possible to make sure that we are recirculating and we are getting the fresh air in. In 6 of our buildings, we pull in 100% outside air. In many other buildings, there are portions of the building that we're doing the same. And then in the rest of the buildings, we pull in as much as the system will allow. We are ventilating the buildings like they are at full capacity, not 50% capacity, not for small groups. We are bringing in enough air to recirculate as if we had a full staff and students of buildings. We're using the highest MERV ratings on the filters. Those are the pleats, a very deep pleat. We're using the highest possible. Some of our older systems will not allow for the MERV 13 as been suggested, so we're using the highest MERV rating that we can get. And our filters are being changed every 90 days. This week, we were shown new research that indicates that it may even be helpful to do a longer time in between the filter changes, because as that filter, the empty filters will allow smaller particles and microbial agents to move through, where if something is a little more full, it doesn't allow as many things to transfer. With that, I believe I've answered the questions that were posed, and I am happy to take any of the others.
When we pull the air in, where is the exhausted air going?
Well, in our buildings that pull in 100% air, it's also exhausting outside.
Okay.
There's recirculation that happens in the other buildings, and that's where we're pulling in based on the system, based on humidity, based on some of the other environmental factors.
A system that automatically does all of this is very expensive to retrofit. So I'm glad that we are doing that. The air exchange is very important.
Yes.
What about 75% alcohol and fire hazards?
Yes, that's one of the things that we certainly want to talk to Moshe about. That was one of our questions as we started to bring sanitizers in, as well as our alcohol wipes, the flammability. And that's one of...
Explosion.
Yes, that's one of the things. So fortunately, we don't have any that are in a very concentrated area. There is one sanitizer bottle as well as one set of alcohol wipes per room. So our concentration is very small in terms of something of that that nature. We do have flammables cabinets in all of our buildings, so if it's determined that in COVID it's necessary to keep some of those there, especially any of the backstock that we have, then we're certainly going to be working with them. But it's very important in the COVID environment that we have these readily available in the classroom, and that's a difficult balance right now.
Any other questions?
I've gotten some comments about bus drivers potentially requesting leave for the ADA and all that, so how is that going to affect us? Have you had any yet?
We have. At this point, we have enough substitutes to back us up. We've been able to fill all the routes necessary. If we had a widespread outbreak of COVID, there's a potential that that would negatively impact, as it would with any of our classroom teaching, as it would with our custodial staff. The substitutes are who we rely on, and at this point, I believe we have 27 bus driver substitutes.
And those are for the ones we employ?
Yes.
That doesn't account for...
So the contractor drivers are responsible to find their own substitutes. In the event that they can't, then we can assist with our drivers, our substitute drivers.
How many bus drivers do we have out now?
I believe there are 70. There are between 70 and 80 that are currently.
How many are out with the CARES?
I am not aware of that information. I'm not necessarily privy to everyone that's specifically out unless they've reported it directly to us.
Okay.
Have you had any out, as far as you know? I mean, have you had any directly reported to you?
Yes. Yes.
How many have you had?
At this point, I know of specific drivers. There are 3.
Right now out?
Yes, that are waiting either pending results of tests or that their medical provider has said that they should be quarantined at this point.
Okay.
So the drivers are aware that the children who enter the bus are checked by their parents, but they don't deliver a note or anything of that. It's presumed.
Yes.
And they enter to the back and they fill accordingly.
Yes, and that's the information that Mr. Evans shared with you.
Yeah.
There will also be some reminders going out on a regular basis to do the temperature checks, to do that screening process every morning, and I believe that was intended to happen on a weekly basis. I'm not sure where that stands right now.
So the use of disinfectants after the delivery of the children
Yes.
is the bus driver's responsibility?
That's correct.
And they've been trained as to how to do all that?
They have all of the proper PPE. They've been trained on how to do
We're going to
that.
leave it up to them if the kids are in the back, glad to see each other and all clustering. Does anybody suggest to them what they should do?
Yes. So
Danielle?
Yes. So the drivers have all been trained on that as well, and they are making their telephone calls, hopefully starting tomorrow if we're at 50%, where that information is reminded to the parents as well.
And there's only one child per seat,
Yes.
and they've been seated accordingly. So
You're right.
it's one to the left, one to the right, unless it's a family member.
And all our bus drivers and contractors will sign that document that we have.
Yes.
I mean, they're all aware of that and sign that so they know the procedures, how to report stuff and all of that nature.
Yes, that is all shared. The flow charts and everything that we have for terms of if you're not feeling well, who should you contact in the morning, they've been shared all of that information. And yes, so the communication is there for them as well as our coaching staff for athletics.
Have we been able to, I think it seems like a long time ago, but we engaged an outfit that was going to put cameras and
Yes.
people passing us a bus that's either loading or unloading?
Yes.
Is that all complete?
The installation was finishing this week. Yes.
I know. I just wanted to say that
We're in the
Advantage,
process.
has been used well.
Yes. So we are in the process of communicating with the Sheriff's Department as well as the county government as well as Bus Patrol to put out press release and to do a joint kickoff of the program. We are hoping that They will begin using the program December 1st. Citations will be given a grace period, and they will not actually go into effect until January 1st. But that should all roll out within our press release.
All that was done at no expense to us or the bus contractors.
Yes, that's correct. So we have, the citations will then generate the income that'll be necessary for the bus patrol review and for the
And a portion of
assistance.
that goes into whose budget?
If there is any left over, let me start here. If there is a deficit, then it rolls over to our next month's payment.
Got you.
So at some point, we may have to make up a monthly charge if there have not been enough citations issued that month.
Okay.
In the event that there's an overage, then that is a county. It goes into the county
The
citation.
positive idea is if there's money being paid into the school board account, it's I guess like selling the things in the cafeteria.
No, I'm sorry, I'm confused here, because when we spoke, we had that whole presentation from that bus camera contractor.
Yes.
We weren't putting out any money whatsoever for those cameras. Now I
No.
understand we have a payment to make to them?
It's a monthly service charge, yes. So we didn't pay anything up front for the
Okay,
cameras.
No one ever talked about a monthly service charge, to my mind.
So it is for them to process all of the citations. So they go through a very regimented process of, they look at the tape, they determine if it's going to be something that they can cite. It gets to the point where they can just pass it to the sheriff's office. So yes, it is a monthly commitment. And I believe it's a per bus commitment as well, monthly.
And it's a set amount?
Yes.
Okay. I don't ever remember seeing that in the contract.
I can certainly get
Would
you
you
that
mind
information.
emailing that to every
Yes.
one of us, please? Because
Yep.
I don't remember that being a part of the contract.
But, you know,
Yes.
this is a two-edged sword. We'd love to have no citations. We'd love to have nobody run red lights on buses. So I think this is a safety issue that has to be done.
I understand that, but it's also a budget issue, which we did not there was no mention, Mr. Smith, there was no mention of it to be going forward in our operating budget. So I just want to make sure
our
that
discussion was that it would be paid for by tickets, but if it's not enough, then like you said, we're going to have to roll it
It
back.
rolls over.
And-
So it's my understanding that there wouldn't be a commitment under the budget.
It's not in this budget.
correct. So I would just like everyone to be
Yes.
apprised of that, so if you wouldn't mind sending it again to us. Absolutely. Thank you.
Sure.
Because we are getting ready to start a budget cycle in January, we need to know what that number is per bus.
Right.
Because we are incurring that in total cost, not the contractors, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we definitely need to have that. Thank you.
I'll get that to you.
I have a concern on that, not on the budget, but whose decision is it to give them a month grace period? I don't see any purpose in a grace period when they're just breaking the law. I mean, we advertise it, they know they aren't supposed to go around, we've made a big deal about it. December 1st.
That's the information in the discussion that has come from the sheriff's office.
They want to give them a grace period?
They do. They feel that
I'm killing
it's
it,
necessary.
Probably has something to do with legality. You change the speed limit or something, and
We're not changing
like, for instance, telephone use, they gave, a grace period after which you were fined so much. It's standard practice that when something is changed, you're given a grace period. You get a warning, but a grace
But
period.
nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. I
The
mean, I
law
agree.
is the law.
I mean, if you run
You're not changing the
a
law.
red light bus when it's stopped, you're breaking the law.
Yeah.
You should get a ticket immediately.
Difference is that you're not on camera when you're doing it.
So this is something that we can't decide? How about if you have a discussion with the sheriff and
Yes.
ask him to up the date?
Yes.
I'm
We can do
fine
that.
with it
As a
starting
request from the
right
board.
away,
We should.
by the way.
Thank you, Tammy, that's true.
Yeah, we can sit here and hash all we'd like and have discussion about it, but it's not going to get done by us. That's entirely
we
up to
will
the
do that.
sheriff's office. Okay, any other questions for Ms. Pullen, or was there any more part of your list?
No. My list is complete.
Ms. Pauls, do you have anything else we need to
Not
add?
for Ms. Pullen. Ms. Pullen,
Okay.
thank you so very, very much.
So
Thank you.
something that was brought up, and I apologize for not asking this. How many teachers do we have out on COVID-related, I mean, not who are possible COVID?
Ms. Bass would be able to.
Do you, I apologize for not asking that earlier, just came to my mind because we just talked about the bus drivers.
Several. I can't give you an exact number.
Correct. And we haven't even talked about students. How many students have we had out? Do we know that?
We wouldn't know.
From in school, in person, to my knowledge, not any. There were some few incidents with some of the sports teams, but to my knowledge, not any from in school, but it may not have gotten to me. And that's the one reason why we developed the flow chart, because for some reason I was the last one to hear about any incidents where it had been reported. But there are several teachers, I would say maybe 5 or
I would say 5 or 6, but they're in this favorite word, process, because if they get COVID tested with the rapid test, they have to then get the culture test. It's a long name, but it is a culture test. And then they have to wait for their results. So once they get their results, then they know, but I can't let them in the building because they would be quarantined under doctor's orders. Then we do get the information from the health department per person.
Yeah, I think 2 positive, and then the others are waiting. They're on the 14-day quarantine.
They're not all from the same school, though.
Oh, no, it's not an outbreak.
Okay, thank you.
No.
It's not an outbreak.
That was
So wait a
my,
minute, they get 2, how many are there for?
There are, how many?
2 confirmed.
2 confirmed.
Confirmed.
So the other ones are waiting for the test results. And in many cases, correct me if I'm wrong, they get the rapid test. That is not accepted. So I then wait for the one that they, put in your nose. That is the one that they take. Correct, Mrs. Morset?
No, so your rapid point of care tests are not PCR confirmed. So a confirmatory should be done, is encouraged.
If the first one is positive, or why do they
Because
bother
your
with
point
the
of
first-
care does not have the detectable RNA, the chemical that is used in a confirmatory test. The PCR test is the valid test, whether it's a throat culture, a nasal nair, a nasopharyngeal. Those are your PCR confirmatory tests. Those are lab confirmed tests.
But you don't, that's not the ones the county does, then?
The ones we do at the health department are PCR confirmed tests.
Oh.
They are sent to a
So why would they
lab.
even do the first one? if it
Well,
was
from what I
Sometimes doctor's office does.
Strep
correct.
test. You
Yeah,
can
if
have
they
a
go-
rapid strep, and then most doctors will follow
Send
it
it
up with a
out.
culture to send to the lab to make sure.
and the Mediclinics do the,
Some have rapid, some have PCR.
It depends where they go.
Oh, okay.
And from what I understand, just to give you a little more information, if you're not a resident of this county, sometimes you have to go to the health department where you live, and we are a mobile county, so people live in Caroline, so we have to wait a little bit. Their return time might be different. Each county has different, depending on cases.
Thank you, Ms. Bass.
You're quite welcome.
And again, those are ones that we know of.
Correct.
okay. And we haven't had any students that we've heard of, other than that possibility
Not
at
to
the.
my knowledge, other than sports. I have not heard of any, since I've been here,
Okay.
any that from classroom transmission. But again, we've sent several students home with symptoms, but to my knowledge, no confirmed cases. But I don't know for sure. I would have to double check with Maria.
And you can't make those children be tested.
Right.
No.
That's a parent decision. So we could very well have had some, they just were never tested.
That was something I asked legal counsel, is if we could make people get testing, and he said it's not allowed. It's not permissible.
It's something, honestly, that's going to come up when we get a vaccine, too. I'm not sure if we're going to require vaccines.
I don't think we're going to see a vaccine for a long time.
I'm just thinking, that's one of those issues that
Fortunately.
you guys are going to have to handle. The
I mean,
vaccine.
it's social responsibility. I mean, and that's what it boils down to. I mean, I think.
It's like telling someone they have to get tested. We can't tell someone they have to get a
I
vaccine.
mean, you go in our schools, I think we're doing an excellent job of sanitizing and keeping stuff straight and being able to track, but we cannot
We do require.
monitor social behavior outside our domain.
Correct. And to my knowledge, COVID vaccine will not be a mandatory unless something at the federal level changes. It's like the flu shot.
I was just wondering because we're required to go into kindergarten. They have to, I don't think we allow kids into kindergarten without having had that.
Well, the
I guess
immunizations were waived this year.
this year, but most years, right, it's required.
Immunizations are different than your yearly annual optionals. The flu shot is optional. COVID at this point is optional. We don't even know if COVID is a one-time or an annual vaccine. I have not read anything to that effect.
I just said it's probably going to come up.
The hopes is that 70% of our population will get vaccinated. That's the hopes with flu vaccine every year.
Is it 70%?
70% would protect the mass.
And what's been the normal, I mean, in years past that you've seen, how many people have gotten the flu shot?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I'm not in.
Gotten the flu? That's not you?
That's not me.
But it'd be interesting statistics to.
Yeah, the majority of
Learn
the
about.
public gets the flu shot because they've been doing it for years. They want to protect themselves. They want to protect family members who are vulnerable. COVID's new. People are going to be nervous about it.
The problem with not getting a flu shot is you get the flu and you have complications. You take a hospital bed that somebody else could be in that has COVID. The governor was very clear, and when he was talking about get a flu shot. The flu shot that I got had 4 different viruses in it, or dead viruses, I hope. Get a flu shot.
That's your public service comment for the day.
The flu shot is inactivated virus.
Right up there next to wear your darn masks. Okay.
So I want to read you a very nice letter that I received from a teacher who is also a parent. And it will be anonymous. And she said, I wanted to take a minute to thank everyone for advocating for our students and staff. I know there are a lot of misconceptions about what is occurring during virtual learning, and I wanted to take a moment to recognize my son's teachers at Kennard Elementary School. I wish the Board of Ed members could be a fly on the wall to witness the excellent instruction, ingenuity, patience, and dedication that I hear every single day from my son's teachers. He is thriving under their guidance. His unified arts teachers, and she named them, are incredibly enthusiastic. Their passion for teaching is evident in their interactions with their students, and he genuinely looks forward to seeing them every week. As a Queen Anne's County Public School educator, I am proud to call them my colleagues, and as a mother, I am incredibly grateful for their commitment to my child. So she goes on to say the BOE should be asking, what can we do to better support the amazing staff we have and show them how much we appreciate everything they are doing for our students. They truly are the backbone of our school system, and they deserve our deepest gratitude and respect. You don't often hear that from a colleague, and I just thought it was worth sharing, that it was just incredibly important how her student was thriving and how much she appreciated what her colleagues were doing. And I can't read every comment, of course, but then there was another one that I told a parent that I would read because she says she's having just the opposite with her student. There are tantrums, there are things being thrown, and it's very upsetting for her as a parent to witness that on a daily basis and trying to deal with the virtual classrooms. Tantrums, daily struggles, anxiety in the virtual. So I kind of leading into all of the correspondence that we have been receiving. And many are not ready, and others are ready to go. This is a no-win situation. Some people are going to be extremely happy with the decision that we make tonight, and some are going to be extremely disappointed. Most of the teachers do want their children back, but they are scared, as I said early. We need to be mindful that the daily COVID rates are on the rise. And As was stated here, we have 14 days with exposure, even if the end result is negative. So to my knowledge, there have been no cases of transmissions in school at this particular point. I want to say that transportation is ready to roll. I want to say that principals, which I could never thank them enough for the work that they have done. They have a plan in place. I have visited every school within the past 2 days. I participated in a simulated lesson, which was synchronous at Centerville Middle School. It wasn't perfect, but it was doable. There were some issues with echoes and things of that nature, but someone who can be highly distracted, such as myself, I would have been able to function in that classroom. And then I had an opportunity to visit, and I believe Captain Kelly did as well, Centerville Elementary School. Teachers invited us in for some observations, and it was amazing. And we visited a second grade classroom where the teacher was working with the students, and then the students, every student in the class was on task. I think there were about 8 students in there, and following that teacher's lead. And she was amazing. I don't want to give her name because I don't want any backlash for her. And it was working extremely well. And then we visited a co-taught classroom. And I know there's been some apprehensions about staying, the 6 feet away from the students, but the paraeducator that was in that co-taught classroom was able to help those kids, and the teacher was handling all the online. It was synchronous lesson. It was well crafted. It was well done. It was absolutely beautiful. I want to say that every school has a plan and they're ready to roll. They're not fully staffed, but they've made all types of improvisions. And I stated that, if we were to open school on Monday without the staffing, that it might be me, it might be Mrs. Stein, it might be someone here from central office filling some of those slots. That might be the only way that we would make it work. The school is ready to schools are ready to receive students. Supplies have been delivered, and I have seen them in schools. Every school has every exit mark. They have their sanitizers out. They have worked incredibly hard. They've come up with a system to receive students. They've come up with a system to dismiss students. They've come up with a system to distribute lunches to students. They really have done an incredible job. One thing we do need to keep in mind in making the decision, as Ms. Harper said, are the holidays. They're right on us. There have been many social events, and we think that's where some of our staff have contracted the virus or symptoms of the virus or been exposed. And there is no way we as a system would be able to handle that. It is concerning. It's concerning to teachers, principals. It's just concerning. So you have a very difficult decision in front of you today. I've tried to represent all of the different groups as best as I possibly can. And again, issues that are out of our control are community spread, people not wearing masks, but they are wearing them in the buildings. We still have some things to iron out with the cleaning, but it sounds like today with Ms. Pullen calling in OSHA that we will definitely be able to work through that. We know that online doesn't work for all kids, and we are concerned about the burn rate of supplies. And Jane, no pressure. We are worried about money and being able to continue to fund if we, if we proceed at this particular point. So I don't know what else I can tell you at this particular point. I just want to say thank you to everyone as we are working through the process.
One thing that I'd like to bring up before we get into the hefty meat of this, there are students who cannot learn virtually. Their grade points have dropped. And I raised this weeks ago, and every week, every meeting since then, somebody has to look at students who had a higher grade point than they have now from virtual teaching. Particularly for seniors, there is a gap in knowledge that cannot be filled unless we do something for those students that had a drop in their GPA. Regardless of how this, even if this starts, they still have the gap. Somehow, we have to find a way that they get tutored, or in the time left before graduation, they don't leave here with a gap in their knowledge. And there are, Dr. Kane indicated several weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that the GPA that was traditionally experienced by face-to-face teaching had dropped under the virtual. We didn't hear how much it dropped, but it dropped. Well, is that because a half a dozen students went from 3.0 to 1.0? We need to find those children, those students, and try to diagnose and fix the gap in knowledge.
Has there been any recommendations on how to do that?
Well, Ms. Forbes has compiled that data, and she did, maybe yesterday or Monday, one day in passing, she said she has that data. I just need to find the time to sit down and speak with her. We did have some money from the one of the CARES grants where we could tutor students, where tutoring could be done. The problem is, teachers already feel like they're on overload, and it's been a little bit difficult to secure tutors. I know one school in specific, Stevensville Middle School, they have a plan where they can use some of those funds to provide tutoring for students, but that money has to be spent by December, so it will only last so long. So to answer your question, yes, we're starting to delve into that, and now that I have Mrs. Stein on board to help me, she'll be able to really pay closer attention to that, and I can, and then we can work together as to what would be the next steps. But Ms. Forbes did say that it is significantly lower than it was at this time last year when students were in school.
And I think a part of that, from what I'm seeing and hearing, it's not necessarily a knowledge gap. They are weeks behind in doing the work. So their grades have dropped. They can't keep up. They're drowning in the workload. So grade point averages are going to drop if they can't get the assignments done. And teachers, I know they're helping at all hours of the day and night to try to help them, but the kids are drowning in the workload. So that's one of the gaps. It's not that they don't understand the work, they just can't get it done.
Well, if they have gaps and they graduate, they're still going to have the gaps unless they go to summer school.
But it's not that they don't understand what they're learning, they just can't get all the assignments in to be graded.
Well,
So it's a matter of timing, to give them an extra time to get those assignments in, to get the grade point average up.
And teachers are doing that, but when you're 3-4 weeks behind, where do you find the time to do this week's work, plus some of that work, to get those grades in, to be graded?
The other thing, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
The other thing I'm seeing from people that have contacted me is the virtual is very, like you said, difficult for some. Like, they just can't get their head into how it works virtually. And in the classroom itself, they're engaged with the teacher, it's up on the board or whatever they do. I mean, it's much more effective than the virtual side, because then they get it, they can get it. So what's happened is all this time they've been sitting at virtual, which is causing a delay, I think, in their ability to grasp it, and then at that point the teachers dealing with individual children just can't catch up.
Well, Mrs.
I'm hearing, that's what I'm hearing from some parents.
Well, I can tell you, the group of kids I talk to is like, I totally understand it, but when I have 4 things I've got to do in this subject today, and 4 in this one, and 4 in this one, I still have 3 weeks back here. I'm still trying to catch up a few things that didn't get included on my interim grade. Of course the GPA is going to drop. They didn't get the grades in, and they're still trying to catch up. Totally understand what they have to do. They just don't have enough time in the day, and they're already up past midnight trying to do it.
So one of the things that I did ask Sue, Mrs. Stein, to work on with Ms. Forbes was surveys. And depending on the decision tonight will depend on which survey will go out. But one of the surveys would be to kind of, for parents to give us feedback on the virtual model and how it is working, because to my knowledge, we don't have any data or any feedback. And the surveys will be a little bit different because the first one that went out, I just had the opportunity to see it. It probably wasn't as detailed as it should be, but so Ms. Forbes is working on that. And then depending on which way we go tonight will depend on the next survey and what it will look like and moving forward. So we think that the feedback from all of our constituents is critically important. Again, we're never going to make everyone happy, but we have to make a decision that really is going to be in the best interest of everyone and safety.
I think, too, you could ask your teachers, how far behind, on average, are your students turning in their assignments?
Oh, and
That would give you a big picture.
something was brought up at the last meeting. There are going to be students that are going to be changing teachers, and that data from the previous months is going to be lost because they have no way with Schoology to transfer it to the new teacher. That is going to affect the GPA of any child,
Well, we addressed
elementary or
that
whatever.
today.
Okay.
And Ms. Forbes and Mr. Page work with principals, and they have explicit directions on how to make that happen. So it is possible.
For it to transfer.
Well, yeah, I think they cancel out of one class and then they go into another, but then they'll still be able to retrieve that data. So that was resolved today at this particular point in time.
That's great. That was something I was concerned at, because that was going to be more information. I mean, that's work that has been done by the student and should be counted.
So we recognize there's a problem. Do we deal with that problem, which is this size, or do we move ahead and deal with this problem? And what happens to the little problem? How much can we ask from staff that's worked so hard to deal with, we have a considerable drop in GPA. I didn't realize it was that noticeable. Is it across the board, everybody, or are there blocks of students who are not?
I would need to see the data.
Yeah.
I would not, and my apologies, I just have not had the opportunity to delve into that.
Well, you've
but
done
that
quite a
was-
bit already, so.
Well, I've tried, but I haven't done everything that I possibly
Well, as I understand it,
should
Ms.
know.
Forbes was going to present it to us at the next work session, which is on the 18th.
the GPA data.
I understand that's what,
I'm not sure that was on the agenda, but
no,
yes, it was something different, but we can ask for it.
if it's available, she may
Yeah,
not have
yeah.
time to process it herself.
Well, if the meeting is not already too long, too many things, but we can add that. I just emailed her and asked her to send it to me, so.
It's important not to look at the aggregate comparative GPA. It's by class, high school class, and then we actually have to see and be able to track down where the trouble is. Is it a question of not being able to learn virtually, or is it a likely situation that the overload is so high that people are behind and there isn't a system to allow them to catch up and get a grade retrospectively?
So what I would say, because I don't think we're going to be able to answer those
No,
questions
unfortunately
tonight, would be that if for any parent who's watching, and I believe everyone is tonight, please contact the school. I had a parent contact me last night and had some grave concerns. She called the school today, spoke with the academic dean, the guidance counselor. Was resolved just like that. So if there are some issues and some learning gaps, please contact the school as a first measure, and I'm sure that they will be able to answer your questions and give a lot more of a detailed response than we are able to give. So some really good questions. Unfortunately, my apologies, I just can't answer them tonight because I haven't seen that data yet. And then it's going to require a lot of layers to get through to really be able to see, and I don't know how it's disaggregated, so we would be able to know to be able to answer your questions. But we can always get there. But again, it would require some time. So we'll see if we can get Ms. Forbes here at the next meeting.
Well, I really think, last March, we're going to 100% school, and we go from there and just stop it, and we go virtual. There's no way these children or students can keep up with what they're doing without face-to-face instruction. We've worked at it very hard, set up some models, and we're in virtual right now. But you're in a whole different, you're not mixing apples and apples. You've got apples and oranges. You're going from in school to virtual, and I don't see how they can keep doing this. They're getting stuff put on them in a different way. It's new to teachers. I think we got to sit back and look at this, because the longer we keep them out, I think the farther we're going to have this problem.
That's some of the things that were brought up in some of the emails to us. The new hybrid schedule will be a brand-new schedule for teachers and students. They don't feel, the ones who emailed to us, did not feel confident with already the struggle that they're having with the virtual and then having the small cohorts in there now, that the hybrid schedule was going to make anything easier. It was going to make it more disconcerting, more of a struggle for students. Am I A day? Am I B day? What's going to happen? It's going to put more stress on the families.
And they didn't agree with the schedule in itself.
Yeah, the schedule
That was a
itself
lot.
is just
And
it's
I'm
a
not
mess.
sure the hybrid program we have might have to be tweaked some, because, we've been going through this for a while, and some of the stuff I've seen, but some of these principals and teachers are working very hard to get these children back in school, and there's going to be some things that we're going to have to monitor on a daily, weekly basis. I think principals have a lot on their plate, but we've got to get them, it is going to be a struggle, but, we just can't sit there and say we can't let them back in. I just think, letting them back in has a lot of positive upstakes, and I've talked to a lot of parents and teachers that think they need to come back too.
Well, nobody's debating the fact that they need to get back. It's just a matter of safety and the health concerns and the technology that we need. I think that extra gig is going to be crucial when we have 50% back in and everyone's got webcams and computers up, and it's going to make things more difficult.
I think it's a false sense of safety to say no students have been positive to this point. We do have school-age children on the positive list. They just don't happen to be in school right now. What if they were?
Yeah, the information that we get each day gives a breakdown by age, the number of students, and it's alarming.
Yeah. When we have infants on there, that alarms me, but we do have school-age children on there.
And
The whole family's on there.
There's another issue, and that's what happened this past weekend, with not a virtual homecoming celebration, but an actual one, with large numbers of people not wearing masks. Not that factors in anything, but I worry about the collective wisdom of our population and the parents taking this seriously.
But when we're in school, we're taking it seriously. We've done everything we can to have a good program when these students are 50% in. We cannot control all the outside influences, and people need to take some social responsibility if we're going to move forward.
Well, there's another timing problem, and that is that the governor gave an hour-long speech last evening, starting at 5 o'clock, indicating that everything is going up, including us. And, frankly, is this the time to announce the start of school when the governor is shutting down from 75% to 50%, telling each of the county representatives, their elected officials, their sheriffs, their liquor board people, their zoning inspectors, to actively seek people who are not obeying this?
Can I speak on that one? The thing I was looking at was interesting. The governor did not say anything about schools. He said it's up to each individual county, and like us, trying to make our own decision based on all the information we have.
That's fine.
And he was talking about businesses, and he didn't even say I'm going back to phase 2. He picked out little things on phase 2 that he implemented, but he didn't bring the whole system back to phase 2, which at that point, we wouldn't be able to, that's much more restrictive. And in my opinion, that, obviously, I'd like to get him back. My thoughts on all this is completely what Superintendent just summarized for us. Very well done with all the options that we have, pro and con. And granted, a lot of the emails we get, everybody writes in when they don't want to do something. We have very few that came in because they don't do that. I don't know, I don't think it's human nature. As soon as the governor sent that in, we got a bunch of emails that said, oh no, the governor told us not to. But the governor didn't tell us not to. He has left it open for us to make the decision on our own based on what we feel is happening. My thought on our prep is our preparation. Are we ready? And based on everything we've had and talked about, are we as ready as we can be to make this absolutely as safe as we can inside our schools? And we can't work on the outside. If people get together with 20 people at Thanksgiving, we don't have any control of that. We never will have control of that. But are we ready? And to me, it looks like we have done everything we can to make sure this is safe for the teachers and the students. It's a huge amount of work, not to say that we couldn't just disregard it or not take that as important as the total safety. What we can do, though, is to look at how we have prepared and how our staff has prepared to make this as safe as possible. And then we make the call on that. My thought is doing even more, we will never get there. The point is, we need to use the information we have, the safety we have, and in my mind, move in a direction of getting them back into schools at the 50% level. I was impacted a lot by my visit to Centerville Elementary with some of the teachers. Some of the teachers, they're doing a fabulous job, like Superintendent said. But some of them actually said, we were leery, very leery at the beginning. Some of us were scared. And we went in, we felt comfortable with the way our school had been prepared for this, and their principal had prepared for this, that they went in and started teaching that way. And they have been pleasantly surprised on how successful it has been. You watch look like a 4 or 5-year-old going to use the bathroom. And it's a matter of teaching them when they're in there too. This little one went from one X to the next X, to the next X, all the way to the bathroom and all the way back out to her class. And then another one came through, and he was probably 3, following the X's, getting into the bathroom. I was like, wow, I'd be surprised if you don't have to holler every once in a while at a 12th grader to do that. But I was very impressed with the preparation they did in the school and the safe measures they taught. And I just think we need to move in that direction. If we don't, we're never going to do it. The whole year will be virtual. We'll be, in my mind, way behind, and I can't even imagine the social and emotional situation of a lot of the students. I would like to look at the end, our graduation rate, which I have heard is going to go down. Obviously, the GPAs are going down, and then it would be good to see how many students are, how many are not doing so well? How many more do we have in a rise? We're talking social emotional here. We're talking about kids that don't have anything to do. I'm looking at the high school and middle school level. We're looking at potentially some major problems for these age groups. And we're looking at it coming out of Queen Anne's County, which has done very well in this thing. I don't know what the opioid use is going to be. There's all these kinds of things that I personally am more concerned about, because I truly believe after all this work, we have made it as safe as we possibly can. Otherwise, I'll never be able to do it. And this is how I'm looking at it. And the last thing is, I'm encouraged to know, even though we are short on staffing, which is an issue, I just truly believe in the principals who are trying to make this work, and I think they will make it work. Some of them have extra people they can put in the classrooms when we're short on a teacher that calls in sick one day. And I think the teachers are interested in doing it right. And I think once they get the comfort level that we are as ready as we can be, I don't think we'll lose the teachers, to not do this. And so the staffing, I know is still an issue. It's being worked on. It's getting better. And I have faith that we can still do it. And the last thing is, I couldn't get the study out of Dr. Salmon's office, but she briefed a study, and I don't have all the statistics, but it was amazing. They did an actual study, and I'll try to find it and get it back to you all. They're all virtual, too, up at the board. I have a hard time getting information out of them, the state board. But she spoke about several studies that were done with current information, like these schools went back. They went back, and I think they went back at some level, and they ended up, and it was a large level. It was a minimum of 50%. And some of them were actually fully engaged with all of their students. And the statistics came out with a very low number of COVID cases as a result on the students, and then a little bit more of a number on the staff. But they were very low for the number of students that were in school. It was like, I wish I had the stats with you, but I was shocked at how low it turned out for actual cases, actual school openings as of this, since it started, not just guesses on what it'll be. So I really do believe we should open, we should do this, we should make improvements when they're needed, and we'll look at whatever happens. We're going to have to deal with Thanksgiving and deal with Christmas. But I think it would be very, very, very bad in many ways, in particular, the social emotional, in particular, the GPAs, if we don't go back until end of January, which is what we're hearing. So that's my say. Thank you.
Mr. Mark.
Captain Kelly, no one has any doubt, certainly not me, of your compassion and your desire to see the kids back into school. We all share that. However, you witnessed the behavior of little kids in an elementary school. Do you think they're going to behave exactly the same as middle school and senior high school kids? No, they're going to be different. They have different values and so forth. One of the biggest problems that we have done is we kept setting dates. I agree with you. One date transferred into the next date. There were a lot of people who saw us that thought we were going to start school on Monday, and we didn't. We didn't for reasons. There is no doubt that our staff has done a magnificent job in creating an atmosphere that things are going to be safe. That details, even more so than 3 months ago, now even the most minute detail is considered. We won't know until we let the kids back into school. The governor gave statistics that actually were kind of scary. Our COVID cases have increased, along with others. We got a feedback that despite all that's gone on over the weekend, there were 60, 70 people having a non-mask event, all school kids, and the number of their chaperone parents. I think we know we have a problem that can be solvable if we apply some intelligence to it, and that is the slippage, that some kids just don't have the time to catch up and get their grades for work that's behind. That seems like something we could solve. We don't need to and frankly, if we let everybody in at 50%, where are those kids going to get their help? I think that's a problem we know about and we can fix, and we don't have to endanger anybody. That exists. As far as optics are concerned, Captain Kelly, you were making the same speech 2.5 months ago, and we didn't get there. And look at all that was accomplished between that point and now. I mean, it's much better now, and you're correct in saying it's much better now. But is it good enough?
Can I ask one question? You said something about talking to Dr. Ciatola today. What is he saying?
He is concerned about the rise, the metrics, and he's concerned about, holidays, pending holidays coming up and social gatherings.
But he doesn't give any kind of recommendation?
I wouldn't ask him to do that. We had a conversation, but he is concerned about the holidays. He is, let's say he is very concerned about the holidays. And he is also concerned that we bring students in, they're there for a week, and then we have to send them home again because of the rise in
the metrics.
Yeah.
Ms. Morissette?
I have nothing further to say.
Mr. Smith?
I think we've hashed this enough, and I'd like to make a motion that we open up the hybrid next Monday, the 16th.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Questions, comments, any further discussion on opening next week?
I think the one thing on the metrics, though, is it is still within the 5 to 15. The 10 is halfway between 5 and 15 on the what do you call it, the case 100.
The 10 is halfway between?
Between 5 and 15.
The threshold was 15, so we were at what, 10.5?
Yeah.
So we're 11. We rounded up to 11. So we're at 11. At 15, we shut down.
Right.
So.
But right now, our health metrics, under what the current thing says, we are capable of opening up with those numbers. And I'd certainly like to be going lower, but, would we make a decision where we're going lower? Is it better? I mean, we're in our numbers.
They're
and
rising.
I feel strongly we need to move forward.
They're rising. From last week to this week, the numbers have risen.
Right.
So I would chance to say I doubt that they're going down, but especially with all the social gatherings, but they have gone up, And I think as we sat here today, Ms. Bass, we had one more come in. We had one more come in of a staff member that would not be joining us, so.
With COVID?
No, not with COVID.
Oh, with CARES.
To do an ADA. I have not seen the paperwork.
Okay.
It came at 6 o'clock. I'll let the superintendent know.
Okay. So one more position we have to fill, or you have to fill.
I know, it's fine.
God bless you. So any more questions, comments, discussion on the motion to open schools in a hybrid on November 16th? Hearing none, I call for the vote on the motion to open schools in a hybrid learning model on November 16th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no.
No.
God, here we go.
No. Motion 3-2, it does not pass. Do I have another motion?
No. I have a question. What are we going to do between now and, what are we going to do next? Are we still continue the small groups if we're all concerned about this? Are we still going to have kids in the school?
Yes, I have a meeting with principals tomorrow, and that would be my recommendation, that we continue with the small groups unless the metrics become too high, that we cannot do that. because I've talked to my counterparts in my neighboring counties, and they are continuing in that way. But I most definitely, will follow the metrics, and if they continue to rise, then we would have to stop any in-person learning at that particular point in time. We will send out surveys in the interim and try to get some additional data as we move forward. The only thing I ask is that we not keep changing the date and say 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, we take a date, we stick to it. I am concerned, and about getting kids back in school. Everyone knows that, but, I am concerned that we get to January and the numbers aren't down, so that is a concern for me as well, too. But based on the metrics today, they're rising, and I don't think they anticipate that they're going to go down. They're just going to continue to rise, especially with holidays on the rise.
One thing could suggest that I know some staff can't come in because they have reasons not to, but I think we should make a conscientious effort to encourage staff to work from our school rather than home. I think that once they get back in school and see some of the things we're doing and get past that initial fear of coming in, I think we might have a different climate. And I don't know what, I guess different principals do it different ways, and I don't know what your opinion on that is, and certainly would go whatever you suggest. But I think we just need to get staff oriented back in, because, our schools are safe. Maybe society is not, but our schools are safe. So I don't see any reason our staff cannot come in. I think we've been accommodating to family, bringing families in and working with students or children of the staff. I just think we should encourage. I'm not saying mandate, but we should encourage staff to come in to schools as much as possible.
I think, aren't the majority teaching from their class, partially at least?
Not all of them.
No?
Not all of them. As I visited schools in the past 2 days, some of the parking lots were full, and there were hardly any staff members there. And with counties that I think have been successful in transitioning students back into school from the onset, that is what happened. It was mandated that teachers come back to school first. And I know that it's been difficult for us to bring teachers and students back at the same time. So teachers being in the building, working, virtually, seemed to work well for them. And then they started to transition small groups of students in. And again, in some of the counties, it kind of varied. But their transition plan was a little bit different. So that is something that we have to look. We have to look at the recovery plan. We'll have to make some changes. We had that conversation with principals today about receiving some feedback saying that some schools were not adhering to that recovery plan, but that is something that we would definitely have to take a look at as well too. So there is a lot of work to be done, a lot of coordination, and a lot of consistency. And
can we bring in more students that need the help? Can the cohorts be enlarged? That's a question that I keep getting constantly, because there are students that are severely struggling that aren't on a IEP or 504, but they definitely need more help.
Like a study hall?
I don't know. I'm asking the question. How?
Probably for instruction for students that need it. If we have teachers there, I think with the survey that we send out, that might be a question that we pose to find out how many parents would be willing to still send their students back if we were to continue to add additional students. And I know there are a few schools that would be anxious to have that happen.
I would be thinking too in this, I'd like them to look at maybe part of your survey, the social emotional situation, to add that in there somewhere. And if there are students that are having issues with that, perhaps our
Sue.
Or what?
Sue, acting assistant superintendent. I think Matt did address that at the last meeting, how they are managing that. So he may have some better data.
I was thinking of Matt, I couldn't think of his name.
There is
And then the
also-
GPA situation too. I mean, if they're,
Yeah, Ms. Forbes did send me that data. I don't want to, prolong the meeting by any means, but she has summarized it, and, it has dropped, but it is something that we can take a look at and delve into a little bit more. And
Mr. Anderson.
The other factor, it could take some review, is that work is being done and not able to be turned in on time. And so therefore, it didn't get graded or something happened to it that it conspired to reduce the grade point average of that student. That seems like something we could find out and deal with.
I'm not sure.
From what I understand, a lot of the teachers, most teachers are not saying, well, it's done, it's passed, you can't do. They're giving them opportunity. It's just a matter of finding enough hours in the day to do what's due today, plus a little of what was due in the weeks previous, and they're giving them opportunity. You got a bad grade on this one, redo it and see if you can improve it. A lot of teachers are doing that. I can't say every teacher is doing that, but most are, because they know they're in a hard place. The teachers are struggling just like the kids are, and they're trying everything they can to help these kids.
There was a system that Paluski had for when we finished the virtual, after being, shut down in March, that they were able to catch up during the summer. And maybe something like that, but of course,
We never got a report on that. We never received a report on
They were
that.
supposed to do gap testing. I don't think we've ever heard any of those numbers.
Well, that's
There's
what
another thing to...
hopefully Julie Forbes will have for us in the next couple of weeks.
But between now and the beginning of the next semester, besides the plan of phasing folks back in, the teachers first and then small groups, maybe take a look at these hybrid plans again with teachers' input, what hybrid they think will work in their classrooms. As a collective, get teachers on these committees and let them weigh in on it. Because we heard from a lot of teachers that said this hybrid model, they're going to have a very hard time making it work.
Yeah.
Maybe there's another one out there that would better suit us.
there were some teachers involved on the Tiger teams.
Okay.
But, at the time that it was started, teachers were off for the summer. So some of them were teacher specialists, but there were some teachers that were involved. But
As I understand, there were several different hybrid learning models presented, and that was the one that got chosen for whatever reason. If there is a better one out there that had been presented, I mean, honestly, I would love for everyone to be able to look at it. Hopefully it would have a better fit. Because that is one of the concerns that we kept having from the teachers, is that this hybrid model was just not going to work.
I mean, I have two kids that are going through it, and I see one has small groups coming in, and I see how that teacher she's making it work, but it's a struggle. And they're special needs kids. So trying to relate to a special needs child wearing a mask who can't see your facial expressions and see that you're happy to have them there. And it's hard to communicate when you have a number of kids who have trouble communicating in the first place. They don't have the speech ability. They don't have great sight. The mask makes it very hard. Plus, you've got kids sitting behind you you're trying to deal with. You got kids on the computer you're trying to deal with, and you're wearing the mask the whole time for both groups. They're making it work, but it's hard. It's very hard. Where my other child is not in that situation, but they're all making the best of it. Everything I've seen with my two kids, the teachers, they're working. They're working hard.
The other thing is, in the interim here, because now you have lots of time, we ought to continue this process to get ready, to get them in schools, continue stocking up on supplies, continue to build up the substitute base. And, we got to be ready. And then when the technology comes in, I think we ought to be ready. Then if things start to go up, and we ought to be able to meet and talk about that again. I don't think we should be waiting until January the 26th before we have a kid in the school. And that's way too long. That's 2 more months of everything I just talked about in my push. And the other thing is, what I did learn in that walk too was when they're doing the virtual while they have students in the classroom, the problem was the ones in the classroom are not getting the attention that they need. I heard that on a visit. So, and if they have a para in the classroom or another instructional aide, not a para, but an instructional aide, at least one extra one in there that can work with the students in the class while the teacher is on the virtual, they indicated that would be a lot more helpful. Now, the ones that had that were doing fabulous. I saw that. But then there are some that are trying to teach on here, and the kids are sitting in there, and they're not getting the attention. So there should be a way, we should find a way to get some extra paras so that all of these classes that have small groups have at least one other assistant in the class if they're doing both at the same time, either a para or an instructional assistant or a substitute. That would be my recommendation. Would make that a little more effective. That's what I gathered from my visit.
I had a question about that. In a normal year, we'd be having student teachers coming in.
Yes.
Are we allowing that? And how could that play into both helping the student teacher learn this whole new virtual thing, which they normally, I guess, would not have done in their education, but also get their hours to complete their education?
Well, many of the colleges are virtual too.
Correct.
So I don't know of any, Ms. Bass. I know that over at Centerville Middle School, they have a counselor who has an internship there, but
We will have student teachers. We did have student teachers. We shut down March the 13th. I was talking to BOE University, and they then went to their student teaching on virtual. So the student teacher was virtual, and so was the teacher virtual. Those babies graduated in May, Mother's Day, and I guess Wash College and Towson and the schools that we draw from will do the same thing this year, because they also have a fear of coming in the building. So the teachers that we will recruit this year may have trained virtually. So it's a one-up for people who will know online, because that's what they've done. So they'll be used to that and the technology. However, they will never have done the relationship building they need to do, as with the mask and learning their students.
Are they not allowed to do the in-person teaching as part of their class? Is it part of their school?
College, yeah.
Okay.
I don't make that decision.
yeah, some of them are just not on campus, so they're not close to, I mean, it would, like, say, our Washington College students that are not there, and they're usually the PDS school that we have a partnership with, and they're usually there. They're just not nearby, so.
Don't student teachers need to have a principal observe their classroom decorum and their efforts? How do they get that done virtually?
They have someone from the college that actually does that, and the principal.
At our school?
Yeah, when interns come into our building, it's up to us whether or not we definitely see them in action when we go in and observe their teacher, but I didn't always do a written observation for them unless they ask me to give them specific feedback and write them a letter of recommendation, but they have actual folks at the college. That is their job, to come out and do the observations for them.
Is she saying she could go, I'm sorry, go ahead. You have a question? Is the student intern, does that happen usually like second semester or I mean, have we talked to them about maybe seeing if we could get some? I love that idea. Is it too early in their school year?
Well, we have a partnership with PDS, and, often we get some field students from Chesapeake College. It's just that everyone is working remotely at this particular point in time, so it makes it a little bit harder if they haven't received the training. I'm sorry, Ms. Bass.
No.
You go for it.
You're right on. And field experience, the college have field experience instructors, and that is their job. And I do believe that, and I can check with my contact at Walsh College, many of them are being observed through a portal that's virtual. So they were observed, they did get their hours, this is last year, because it's really only, they would be in maybe their 6-week, report card time. So field experience people reviewed whatever they were doing virtually. There is a portal for that you can observe the two virtually. So the classroom teacher at the PDS school, professional development school, is virtual. The student is virtual. They are observed by the college field experience person virtually. Because I don't know if the colleges are letting them come to school.
Well, that's the same thing our principals are doing with teachers who are working
I'm not
virtually.
talking about them. I'm talking about new hire, directly graduated from college who begin their career in teaching. They are observed by the principal.
Well, I just
Have
got
to do reports.
I just got an email saying that the PDS schools have them. They're keeping me on target here.
Okay, any other questions? I agree not setting a date. If the metrics work out that we can start earlier, I'm all for it. We made a decision tonight that is, some is very popular with, and others, we haven't made any friends. And again, sorry for that. We're in unprecedented times, and the safety and security of the students and the staff in our buildings is of utmost concern, right next to providing the best education possible that our Queen Anne's County students deserve. Please know that. Okay, moving on. But there's a but?
December, I think we should talk about it December 2nd, at least see where the numbers are, what we think, and then again on January 6th.
We are going to be discussing this from now until June 30th. So yes, we'll be discussing this at every meeting.
Okay.
I think we even have it on next week's agenda. We have a work session scheduled. Ms. Wright, am I correct on that? It's on there as well?
18th.
The 18th, is it on there?
Agenda.
I'll look at it, thank you.
Okay.
No, it's not on
There's
here, but I
something-
think
there's
it's
something on there.
something to be, I think that it was decided that you would continue to discuss it at each of the meetings, so.
Okay.
Could we change it from opening of schools discussion to update of the return to school?
There you go.
Okay.
We'll call it something else.
And the other thing is I recommend you all, I'm not going to be here, so that
Neither
you
will I,
all,
so-
you all attempt to go to, get a tour at these small groups, schools, and what's going on in the small group schools. That's the first one I've gone to, and I'd like to go up to Settlersville Elementary. I mean, we haven't, and this is before your time, we haven't ever been briefed on how that goes, how many kids are there, how it works in these small groups, and I fault for not knowing.
Well, that is why Mr. Smith and I went several weeks ago with Ms. Pullen. We went to Settlersville Elementary School, which was almost at 50%. And then we went to Settlersville Middle School as well, because we wanted to see how they were transitioning.
Okay.
Yeah, I highly recommend, if you can, then I do recommend that. Safely with the principal's permission, and of course the superintendent knowing about it, or even attending would be great. We do need to know. We need to see it. We need to see it and let the public know that it does work safely. Any other discussion? Okay, moving on to current action items. 3.01, new bus purchase to replace 1609. Do I have a motion to accept the approval of a new bus purchase for 2021 school year for the purchase of, due to mechanical issues, the PVA will remain the same? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions, comments, discussion on the bus purchase, Ms. Pullen? I see it's Mr. Lamont Wright.
Yes, and everything is just as listed on the request. PVA will remain the same.
And that bus, I guess 2009, so that bus is 11 years old?
Yes,
And due to mechanical and transmission issues, it needs to go out of service?
correct. He wishes to purchase a new one.
Okay.
What is the repair cost?
I am not sure of that. We can find that out from Mr. Wright.
Well, but
That's why I was
really,
asking for a complete new bus.
it's irrelevant,
I know
because it's
that.
his bus, and it's not going to cost the school system anything. He's going to get the same PVAs he would on his old bus.
Correct.
Until his new bus would have come in service. That's a financial decision he's making, and I have no reason to think that, it's not going to cost the school system anything. If that's his decision as a private contractor, I'm fine with it.
And it's
Well,
a new bus.
It costs somebody something.
Cost him.
Mr. Wright.
Pardon me?
Mr. Wright will purchase the bus. The PVA that is already in the operating budget that we approved will
It's in
stay
the
the same.
capital budget.
We do not purchase it, sir. Mr. Wright is purchasing it.
Okay.
So the PVA that we have already approved in the operating budget for 2021 will remain the same. So there's no increased cost to the board. Okay, hearing no other discussion, I call for the vote on the motion to approve the new bus purchase for replacing 1609 from Mr. Lamont Wright. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Pullen. We are at 3.02, superintendent search. Dr. Kane has informed the board that she is not a candidate for reappointment for the position of Queen Anne's County Board of Education Superintendent. Consistent with this, the board needs to begin the search process for a new superintendent as soon as possible. I believe I sent you all emails in regards to this. Let's start this off. Do I have a motion to retain MABE services for the purpose of the superintendent search to begin December 2020 for the fiscal impact of $25,000 under contractor services operating budget of 2021? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments, discussion?
I have no problem. I think MAID's probably the way we should go. We will be having 2 new members come on, so I think we should wait for any decisions on how we proceed with that until our first meeting in December.
It's my understanding that this search is not only important, but is also apt to take a long time, so starting now is a good idea.
Ms. Morissette?
I agree with Mr. Anderson. I agree. From what I understand, it's a very lengthy process.
It is.
Well, the only one who's been through a full process of it is Captain Kelly.
It is very long, and MABE will come forward with a big explanation on the process for everyone, the first time they meet with you. And they'll also get everyone to sign a confidentiality agreement that and that's a big deal. And then they will tell you all the steps that have to be taken, and they really guide you through it. They're great at it. And they go out to advertise all over the country. They don't just do it around here, which I was personally happy about, just to get a full range of who might do it. I think I got a feeling we're actually starting earlier, because most school systems, in February is when they start the process going.
Actually, we're late.
Are we late?
I received several emails today, as a matter of fact. There's several school systems around the country that have already picked the new superintendents. They are already done.
Well, they did with Mr. Paluski.
Well,
but not for next year.
when we started, it was October.
Right.
We started in October, and it took a while.
But the superintendent was gone
Correct.
July 1st.
Correct.
So I think we're really starting early to make a superintendent for potentially July 1st.
Well,
And we're in a little different situation right now, but in a
Correct.
normal situation, it would start in February, because that's when certain dates come up. I have no problem in starting this process. I just want to make sure that, because we are seating new members, that would be part of it. Not anything against the current members. It's just, I think, that's who's going to be dealing with it over the next year.
Well, that's only a couple of weeks away. I don't think they're going to brief you all before December.
no, and that's what I need to preface this. I should have prefaced this by saying I researched several headhunter companies, as I did before in 2016. Most of the starting prices were at $30,000. we can't justify that. After I talked to Frances Glendenning, the executive director of Maryland Association of Boards of Education, and I sent you all that email, she recommended the signing when the new board members were sworn in, because they have to sign a confidentiality agreement. But right now, just getting the process started with MABE, and we have a full week of, Thanksgiving coming in, so the week of December 1st is doable for MABE to help us get started. All the meetings will be by Zoom. Hopefully, the costs won't be any more than $25,000. That was including some travel costs if that was necessary, but she didn't seem to think it would be more than that, which is good working with our budget.
Interestingly, Dr. Salmon's leaving.
Yes. They just
They're
announced
doing a similar search.
They just announced who would be conducting that search, and that's a much bigger out-of-state company that, executive search engine for them. So hearing no other questions, comments, discussion, I call for the vote on the motion to retain MABE services for the purpose of the superintendent search to begin December 2020 for the fiscal impact amount of $25,000 under contractor services in the operating budget of 2021. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. And just to, we just found out the unverified results from the write-in campaign that Helen Bennett seems to have won District 3, and that Mark Schiffinelli has won District 4. Again, those results are unverified. Moving on to future meetings and events, we are still meeting on November 18th, board work session. We already have the agenda, in the process. And our board meeting, December 2nd, 2020. Again, both meetings we will be looking at the opening of schools. With that, any other questions, comments, discussion?
Yes, I'd like to pursue the provision Article 3-305 and -3104, move the board, Queen Anne's County Board of Education go in closed session to discuss appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials whom this body has jurisdiction.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, I call for the vote.
Could it be repeated?
It is the motion to go into closed session, Mr. Anderson.
Oh, that's fine.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote on the motion to go into closed session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. The ayes have it. We will close out in closed session.
I had something I wanted to add in the end here.
Okay.
I wasn't going. I just wanted to say to the students, in particular the seniors, if you want to have a senior year, you need to think about your social distancing. You have to think about what you're doing. You're blowing it for yourselves. And basically, I just read that the new studies come out that wearing your mask is not only beneficial to people around you, it is also beneficial to yourself. So please wear your mask and be social distancing. Stop getting into your groups. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going into closed session. Thank you all very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.